Let's make it our business. A climate podcast that's about innovators, change makers, and entrepreneurs who are taking actions, creating solutions, and inspiring many. This podcast is supported by US Department of State, created by BBC Media Action, India.
So we're just about to explore the delicious intersection of food and climate. My name is Saima and I welcome you to the very appetizing podcast, Cool It Down, where we're about to uncover how our choices on the plate impact the planet with Dr. Kalpana Sastry, a scientist, and Saket Dave, the entrepreneur. But before we hear them, here is one who's been walking the talk. Just like his name, very elemental and deeply engaged with climate change, Aakash Ranison. Welcome to this podcast that we call Cool It Down, and we intend to do just that, Aakash. You've been playing a very crucial, important role. You call yourself a climate optimist, and that's where I want to begin. Why do you call yourself a climate optimist?
Whenever every day when I get up, it's up to me how I choose to live the day, right? And I choose to be optimistic. I choose to be positive. If there's I also believe in philosophy of yin and yang. So I choose to be on the positive side. And obviously, if I don't believe something can be done, it can't be done. So first, before I do it, I need to believe in it. And every day when I get up and I'm trying to protect the environment or the nature, I first need to believe that it can be done, which gives me the energy to do it.
At what age did you tell yourself that this is what I want to do? I want to be a climate optimist. I want to do something for my planet.
So it was somewhere about 8 years ago. So let's say somewhere in the age of 21 and 22, I got an opportunity to go on a trip to Ladakh with WWF for snow leopard conservation. And that was the first time when I experienced the beauty of Ladakh. Wherever you go, like if you haven't really seen the pictures of Ladakh or nobody has told you about it, if you land there for the first time, you won't believe that it's on Earth. You might really believe that it's on some other planet. And the place was so beautiful and serene, and also the people who live over there, they follow Buddhism, which is a very kind and humble religion. And that just made me felt so much love, and I felt empathetic towards the place itself. And that's what got me to think about to do something to protect the environment.
Did somebody tell you at that time that this is what we stand to lose if we do not wake up today and start thinking about how to save our planet?
No, not really. Like I was on a trip, like obviously they were telling me about snow leopard conservation, but there was not really much discussions over climate change or global warming or anything as such. But then while on this trip, I saw plastic being littered around here and there. And when I got back, it took me about 2 years. It was a slow journey for me where I learned something here and there about plastics. Someday got to read about an article on plastic and read a word called climate change or global warming. My interest sparked into it, and I've always been someone who's really interested into science. And then later on, I decided to learn more about the word called climate change. And that got me to understand that, okay, there's a big risk, not only on humans, but on all the other species, and I must act towards it.
Aakash, when I first came to know about, the fact that in India, methane from food waste is equivalent to annual emissions of 150 million cars, I actually started looking at food waste in a completely different light. It was the first time I saw the connection between food waste and climate change. Did you know about this?
So my journey with climate change, the first time or the first sort of hit which I got to learn about climate change was about methane. And it was not just from the food waste, but from the whole animal agriculture industry itself, that how much amount of methane they are putting out. And big organizations and companies are hiding these details. And that was the time when I decided to go vegan. And it's been about 8 years that I've been vegan now. I don't consume any dairy product. I've always been a vegetarian from childhood. And that's when I learned more about palm oil or different things, how we are poisoning our own food. And then obviously we are dumping out so much. So we are globally growing food each year, somewhere about enough for 13 billion people. And we are feeding 7 billion. 1 billion are still sleeping without food, where is this food going? It's either going to animal agriculture, or either it's being served to people who are not even finishing their food and they're dumping it out. So I totally believe it's a huge space which is obviously causing a lot of harm, and a huge space where we can be optimistic and bring a lot of positive change.
Akash, do you believe that as a country, we still need to understand, we need to realize the seriousness of the entire issue? Do you really believe that human beings actually can cool it down if they intend to?
Indeed, we can cool it down, no doubt on that. But now, how do we go about it? There are two ways. I always talk to people, whenever I talk to people, I always tell them that there's two ways to fix climate change. One is by brain, another one is by heart. What do I mean by that? Brain is very simple. I'm going to put a fine on you. If you don't wear the seat belt, I'm going to charge you a fine. I'm going to take away what is most dear to you, and that is your money. So now to save your money, you act in a certain way, as the way I'm telling you to be. Or second is that you really care about your own life. You care about the family which is at home. So you wear the seat belt because you love yourself and your family.
Very well put.
That's how we can fix climate change, right? If we want to fix climate change, obviously there's one thing. I can keep on bringing policies one after another, taxes after one after another, like carbon tax, methane tax, environmental tax, and whatnot. But then, you know it, as soon as there's no camera, as soon as there's no police officer, we take off the seatbelt. We have seen this scenario in our life. That's what's going to happen if we keep on putting policies or taxes on people to make them act in a certain way. Better way would be that why can't we imbibe the kindness and compassion towards animal nature and all the other sentient beings in children's. In school, nobody is teaching about this. In I don't know when was last time I was being really told to be kind towards people, or being taught or being helped to practice. So I really feel that there's a huge gap, and it's a very big problem. It's not only about climate change. Any sort of crime you see, you will find that there's no empathy, there's no understanding, there's no equality towards each other. Everyone is getting very selfish and greedy. That's what is causing so much ruckus across the globe, not only in the space of climate, but in every possible field.
I hear you, Aakash. A lot of damage has been done. A lot of damage is being done. Miles to go. But as you put it so beautifully as a climate optimist, we have at least begun. Thank you so much, Aakash, for adding your voice to cool it down.
Thank you so much for having me on board.
Joining us today is a distinguished agricultural scientist, Dr. Kalpana Sastry. Thank you so much, ma'am, for being here. I'm not going to call you ma'am. I'm not going to call you Dr. Kalpana because you have asked me to call you Kalpana, and that is a great, great, great beginning. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Saima. It's great to be associated with this podcast, and I would love being part of this and adding a new flavor to some of the discussions.
So, Kalpana, I'm going to begin with the very basic question, which is hanging in many heads. Can you explain the correlation between food waste and climate change for our listeners who might be new to this topic?
When I say food waste, I think anybody thinks about the waste which comes out of the kitchen or the dinner table. But I expand that definition of food waste. I think food waste starts right from the farm gate. From the time the poor farmer starts producing and when he starts putting it into the production process, the processing processes, and technically we term it as food loss. The steps. Maybe it's not much, but each element together make the big ocean of a threat towards climate change. And of course, the other part is the normal food waste, which the cooked food we consume knowingly or unknowingly in the type of lifestyle habits which we have probably cultivated over the years, we add to the food waste. Now, somebody might say, how would it impact the big global phenomenon of climate change? It affects one of the driving factors in scientific data says more than 1 billion tons annually are lost in food, and that contributes to 8 to 10% of the GHG emissions.
Now that's an eye-opener. Food waste contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and is a significant factor in climate change. Can you tell our listener which specific domains within food production, distribution, and consumption do you feel are more relevant for new age entrepreneurs to come in and contribute to?
I'm just coming from a session where I was talking to a lot of startups and who were pitching their ideas. 90% of the smart entrepreneurs in agriculture actually come with these problem statements and their efforts to look at the problem statement. So you have modern age mechanization definitely is one element. Mechanization at the crop production level, small implements which are gender friendly, all the better. Today's monsoon, the lack of prediction in the rainfall. So you need a lot of data type of innovations, data-based innovations to tell us when the rainfall is going to come. It's no more that it's the compartmentalized rainy season nowadays. Either you have excess rainfall or you have no rainfall. So you need solutions to give to the farmers. Excess, how do you control your watering system? That's in the production. You also need technologies at the warehouse. Maximum amount of food losses come in the warehouses and in the packaging arena. An entrepreneur with a smart idea on bio-packaging or using waste rice stubbles to make good bio-packaging.
Thank you, Kalpana, for sharing and inspiring. Talking about ideas and entrepreneurship, joining us today is someone walking the talk, Saket Dave, founder and CEO of Wastelink. Welcome to the podcast, Saket.
Thank you, Saima. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me today.
So, Saket, you founded Wastelink in 2018. Your endeavors focus on converting food waste to animal feed ingredients. What came first? An opportunity or sheer passion to do something for the environment?
That's a great question. So for me, it was always the passion. Business just happened. When I was in college, and I grew up in India, you see every university has this student premise, which has a little board there in the kitchen, which says so much food getting wasted, right?
Right.
So I was very, very compelled to do something about it. I got my friends together in college. We set up a composting system, and that's really when I got introduced to waste. And this is back in 2010, and at that point, I started getting more and more interested in what can be done with all this waste that we are generating. And that passion kind of continued with me for over a decade. I kept tinkering with ideas in and out, and finally ended up, with Wastelink. And yeah, here I am, spending the rest of my life working on food waste.
So the bull's eye was that you had to achieve it, huh?
Absolutely.
Somehow.
Absolutely. It's a problem that is so passionate, that makes you so passionate, because it's a problem that shouldn't exist, right? I mean, we're a country that generates so much food. We want to feed our population, but at the same time, there is so much food that gets wasted, and we have so many people who go hungry. So it's a problem that shouldn't exist. So it's something that drives me every day to try and solve it.
So can you explain the process by which Wastelink converts food waste into animal feed, and how this reduces carbon footprint or, greenhouse gas emissions that we're talking about?
Sure. So, through my decade of working on food waste, I've come across, I begin to look at things very differently, that all food waste is not equal, right? When we go to a restaurant, we order a portion, just because we have some leftovers, that's not bad food. That's still food we would have eaten.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's some additional food that now will be thrown.
Right.
So food is actually pretty good at the point when it's considered as waste, right?
Right.
Then to take it into a solution that can harness that source, because it's still good, is then a great source of value, when you upcycle it. So that was the fundamental idea. So we started looking at food and what can we do with all this good food that is marked at waste? What can we do with it? And then in part of our research, we realized that animal feed is actually one of the largest industries in India. We have the largest
Right.
dairy population in India. We are the largest milk producing country. At the same time, our animals don't get adequate nutrition.
Right.
While you have all this food, which is good enough for humans, which is now going waste. So can we actually be the bridge? Can we bring this good food to the animals, right?
That's tremendous, and the best part about this is that while you are cooling it down, you're also, earning, you're making good money, and it's so satisfying at so many levels. Not many think of food waste or even our food choices as being a big contributor to climate change. Does your business pitch have to start by showing that side of it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the reality is yes. I think like most of us, and even when I was in school and college, but I was not as exposed to this problem as I am today. All the food waste that I was exposed to was what was at home, and perhaps what was at restaurants, places where you order, right? Which is then gives you a very limited understanding of how big this problem is.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's only when I actually started reading up about it, taking a little bit more interest, I realized that this is actually this food that we see out of our households, or this food that we see out of our restaurants, or it's actually 1/3 of all the food waste. The majority of the food waste is actually wasted before it even comes to our plates.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine all this great food getting wasted before it even reaches our cities.
Right. So while you're practicing, everything that you always believed in, how about educating and awareness? So does Wastelink actually undertake education and awareness campaigns to actually see how many people understand, this entire philosophy, this entire connection, and what basically this kind of churns out?
Yeah, we do. I think we see ourselves as climate activists. We see ourselves as people who have this unique opportunity to really solve the problem, and we talk in as many forums as we possibly can. We are very active in our engagement with our food brands. We're very active, and many of them are actually quite openly communicating about the work in sustainability they're doing with us. So we have a lot of indirect outreach as well. So because we believe that solving for food waste has to be through a community.
Right.
You as a company, you are able to solve for only a small subset, and this is a massive problem. So everywhere we go, we're always talking about it. There's also, of course, a lot more we could do. But I think that's something that we continue to work on.
So over the time that you've been in this business, have you seen any shift in the way people in organizations think of climate change and the role that they can play in finding a solution for it?
Yeah, I think.
Do you sense curiosity around
absolutely.
you?
I think I think people are beginning to realize and actually see firsthand the impacts of climate change. Every year we hear a strange climate incident, a very unusual weather pattern, and people are beginning to become sensitive, right? And when they ask, why is this happening? Why is climate change happening? These questions are now becoming more and more frequent.
Right.
Our children are we were never taught climate change.
Yeah.
In school, right? But it's not the same with our kids. So we are seeing a big change in people's understanding. It's still very early.
Yeah.
I think it's not as much as it should be given the scale of the problem.
Right.
But it's there, and it's coming along. But of course, there's a lot that needs to be done. As you would see in much of the discussions around climate, what is being done is just not enough to solve for the scale of the problem that we are dealing with here.
And then, Saket, that is my next question. What more do you think is required to create greater awareness and to convert it into a mass movement for, reducing food wastages?
Yeah, I think, it starts by educating our children. It starts by educating our adults. Like you correctly pointed out, people are not even aware of food waste being such a big issue.
Right.
And the fact that most of it actually happens before it even shows up. Right. So if there is, in fact, the very recent UN Global report, again, very interesting piece of information, they actually said that we have enough food waste generated in the world to feed all the hungry people. So technically, there should not be any world hunger. right?
Right.
Not many people know about this, right? So this education awareness starts at our homes. It starts at our schools. I think once you have a generation that is significantly aware and is significantly more sensitive, they're going to make smarter choices, right?
Right.
And they're going to demand smarter choices as well. They're going to demand smarter choices in terms of their consumption patterns, right? They'll be more mindful of how much they want to order in a portion.
Right.
So it's a systematic change, and I think there is roles that us as individuals play. There's roles that as a community we can play. There's of course roles that can be played by corporations and especially by the government. But it's definitely I'm a firm believer this is not a problem that you can just say that, hey, waste is government's problem. It's not. The government doesn't generate waste.
Absolutely.
We generate the waste, right? We tell them to handle it, right?
Right.
So it's our obligation to find a systematic solution around it.
What is that one piece of advice that you would give to aspiring entrepreneurs looking to solve climate-related challenges?
I would say get started now. It's a massive problem, and the scale of opportunity is so massive, right?
Right.
There is opportunity in all forms of clean tech that is available, and it's the need of the hour. Right? It's a sector that is going to grow many folds given the energy transition that we have to. It's not even optional now to undertake this energy transition. We have to take it if you want to save this planet for our children. So this is a sector which is the next frontier. Of course, since it's a new sector, it comes with its own challenges. You're gonna have to figure out many ways of working on the problem, for which you may not have a prototype. You may not have a playbook that you can copy from another startup industry and just cut paste over here. So you're gonna have to do a lot of on-ground research. So don't worry. You'll figure it out. But what matters is your passion. I think the fact that you have taken the first step to try and solve this problem, you should remind yourself about it every day. And when it gets hard, just stay at it. It's going to come.
Right. So you've addressed the business part of it, but I, as an individual, if I don't have the entrepreneurial skills, but I, as an individual, want to contribute to the same cause. What is that one thing that you would tell me? How can I help it?
Yeah, sure. I think that ever since I started getting more involved in food waste, my own choices have become so much more different. And it's a story. It's a journey that I share with many people. I think when you start thinking about what goes into each kilo of food that is produced, you automatically become more mindful of why you should not waste it.
Right.
And I think what we can do at our own individual level, perhaps it's also, in many cases, kind of, it is built into our Indian tradition, but kind of being mindful of what we order, being mindful of what we buy, consume, what we throw away. If a piece of fruit is just a little bit bad, let's not throw it away. Let's find see if we can actually consume it. If it's really bad, okay, that's fine. So many things that you can do to really cut down food waste. Food is unfortunately the type of product that has a shelf life, right? So if you buy a piece of fruit, it's going to go bad in 5 days,
Right.
So you just have to pace yourself. You have to make conscious choices. And of course, speak to as many people, encourage that kind of accountability around food. I think it's really important to do that. There is this concept that food is biodegradable, so it's going to go away. So nobody has to really do anything about it. Plastics or other forms of waste are going to stay in the planet for thousands of years. That's not true.
Oh.
When food goes away, it goes away with a lot of methane, right? And that methane is why we have the climate problem.
Right.
So if you want to solve the climate problem, while you have to solve for all types of waste, you absolutely cannot ignore food waste because it is 8% of the world's total carbon emissions.
Right. So I think as an individual, it's all about first following the example, then becoming one, and then actually inspiring others. Saket, it was delightful to have you, with us on the podcast. Now we know which direction to take. We know there is somebody who has taken it on and is going ahead. Many more entrepreneurs will follow. I have this firm belief. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Saima. It was a pleasure.
It's not about all or nothing. Every small action makes a difference. Start with these simple steps. Be mindful of what you order, buy, consume, and throw away. Inspire others to make sustainable choices. Entrepreneurs, the world needs your innovative solutions to cool it down. Together, let's make it our business to reduce food waste and combat climate change. This is your host, Saima, signing off, leaving you with some food for thought. Every step counts in cooling it down. Stay tuned for more climate connections, business ideas, and actionable steps we can all take.
Cool it down. Let's make it our business.